So I got a Nissan 05 Maxima 20th anniversary edition. Oh yeah. 3.0 V6. So I'm gonna do two things. I'm gonna do one thing and show you two things at once. I'm gonna go key on and get my data up for RPM cranking. But then what's gonna happen is when I do key on, it's gonna prime this fuel system. You're gonna see pressure go up, and we're gonna watch what happens with that pressure. So key on. So I hit 45. Now we're going. What are we doing, guys? We're dropping in pressure. Hopefully I'm not getting the sun glare. So now we're down to 30. Should have a timer on this thing. Which side of the system is leaking? So we're almost down to 25. Boom. And it's gonna keep going. But I want to show you the symptom of why he brought it in. And that would be extended cranking. When it sits for any length of amount of time, it will have an extended crank. And if you shut it off and start it right back up, it'll start no problem perfectly. But any letting it sit, then it'll be hard to start. All I want, custom data list, all I want is RPM, and I'm gonna only select that so it's really fast. Alright, so what I'm going to try to show is the second I start cranking, fuel pressure is going to jump up, and it's still going to have a hard time starting. It's still going to crank with good fuel pressure. So let's do that right now. I'm going to get another pit up just so I can get the highlight off. So let's see. Injector pulse would be a good one. Injector. Just to show that it is pulsing the injectors. But I want RPM to be the focus. Alright, so I'll try to do this. So cranking right now. Good fuel pressure, still cranking, still cranking. Oh! It wanted to start, kind of stumble, let off the starter, and it didn't start, didn't complete the start, but I had 425 RPM, and you can see right there, it had a little bump in RPM when it kind of wanted to start. Let's try it one more time. 35. It's like it's running. It's running, barely. I'm giving it throttle, holding it at 25 or so. And now we're running, idling good. You can see when it was having a hard time starting. And now we're started running, idling at 13. I'm gonna shut it off. No, my scanner didn't update. Key on. Just want to show you how now that it started and it runs without letting it sit, I'm going to show you how short the starter cranking time is. immediately almost. You have a little bump, that little tiny bump. I'm gonna hit pause, zoom in. That little bump was the crank time, and then it started right away. There's a demo of the symptom. So seeing that I had good fuel pressure during cranking, I wanted to get cylinder analysis. Go in here with a WPS, spark, fuel injector, see what I'm missing during that cranking. And I wasn't really missing anything. This analysis was playing last night. Valve timing is good. BDC 180 is intersecting the slope. That's top. TDC, it's a little late on the intake and exhaust, but it drops pretty close. But yeah, regardless, specifically what we're looking for is right here during cranking. When it's high compression, this is the cranking. Then it starts, and the volumetric efficiency, when RPM increases, the volumetric efficiency decreases, so it can't fill the cylinder as well. So anyways, here's cranking. Got blue injector. Looks fine. Got a pintle hump. And we got compression in red and spark in green. So we have a weird looking spark line, but if I had to guess, this is the spark line. Got a little blowout and then the residual energy. But we got 17 kV spark lines around 4 or 5, maybe. That's way too high, but not the problem. And the compression we got during cranking 164 psi of compression. So we have everything during cranking. Spark, spark, spark right in the middle. Good timing. It's happening right before the peak. So what are we missing? The answer is we're not missing anything. And what do we have excess of is going to be fuel. Common on these Nissans is injector problems. One other problem in that category is common is injector leakage. So when the engine is off, engine's not running, no computer drivers are being energized, injectors are not firing, but we have fuel pressure in the system, and there's something that's mechanically sticking the injector open, so it's bleeding all the pressure out into the cylinder. So we got fuel pump output. There's a arrow going this way, so this is output going to my valve. So here's the shutoff valve right at the fuel pump. Then this is the gauge right here. This is where it's going to be measuring the pressure, and here's the rail. This is going to the fuel rail. So what I'm going to do is crank it and run it, shut it off, and I'll have about 35 psi once I shut it off. Immediately shut this valve off, close it. So what that's doing is it's sealing the gauge and the fuel rail side. The pump side is not going to be measured. If there is a leak, which, spoiler alert, there is a leak on this fuel pump that they say is brand new. So I'm going to say go back for a warranty wherever you got it from, because one, it's not a new fuel pump, and two, if it was a new fuel pump, it's leaking. But regardless, the more important leak is going to be on this side, fuel rail side. So open the valve. Start stall. Hard to start. And that was just what, maybe 3 minutes? So we have 39 psi. Just dropping a little bit. So we'll call it 38 psi at idle. 38, shut it off, shut this valve. So we have exactly 30. I'm gonna do this one in real time. What's happening, guys? Boom. Look at that. And it's not a slow leak. That needle is dropping fast. Alright, we'll be here all day if we watch it go from 5 psi to 0. So we'll call that a significant leak on the injector side. And I know the pump side is leaking because, one, I switched the valve and I did it like that too. But let's say the injectors were leaking but the pump was not, and the check valve was holding the 30 psi of pressure, no problem. When I open this valve, pressure differential will equalize, and this 0, which is 0 now, the 0 and the 30 will meet and it'll jump to 15. So if I open this and it doesn't jump at all, jumped barely to 2.5 or 4, yeah, 4 psi. So that the pump side is leaking as well. So we know, according to the gauge, our fuel injectors are leaking pressure. So the next thing to do would be to pull the rail and see which cylinder is leaking. I could do one thing to go around that, and I would have to get lucky doing it. And I already pulled this one out, so it wasn't this one. If I pull these ones out, pull the plugs out, go key on and see if the injectors fill up the cylinder, that would be the only other, that would be the only thing I can get lucky with. But no matter what, this plenum is gonna have to come off, pull that rail out and watch the injectors leak down. One of them is pissing. So I took out the front bank coils, the plugs, they're all black. This one's a little wet. But on this front bank, plugs out, just pressurize the system. It's dropped pressure. None of these cylinders are really wet. This middle one's a little moist, but nothing's wet. So I do have to pull this manifold and pull the rail up just for testing. Well, look at that little guy. So yeah, go ahead. That was it? Okay, so a little bit of puking, a little bit, but yeah. My boss is MVP on this one. I told him injector side is leaking 100%, that I need the okay to pull the manifold and the fuel rail, and he goes, okay, did you check the regulator though? Well, it must be a common problem back in the day, and it's coming back, because yeah, I pulled this vacuum line off and then all of a sudden did fuel. So there it is. So out of this one, there's 2 regulators. Yeah, it's just that front one. And there's a T right here. So we pulled the vacuum line off the second regulator, which is located right there, and fuel came out, but it came out because it's got a T. There's the leaking regulator.
has to leak during idle. And then you can see that hose, that fitting right there is the other regulator. And it's not leaking at all. Just this guy. And it's very expensive. This one, you see right there, kind of, it's got a hose with a clamp. This one's part of a whole assembly with a crimp fittings. And it goes all the way back here. Not cheap.
That's actually a really good way to fix holes in your shoes. Bubble gum. What? Yeah, no, you got like fancy dress shoes or boots or something. You chew bubble gum and you stick it in the hole, it almost just turns to rubber again, and it works. I had it in there for like a year and it worked fine.
You buy shoe goo.
What?
Buy shoe goo.
Load it down and then load it up.
Hopefully you can see right here is the hose. There it is.
So here we go. New hose, new regulator, not leaking. I should test it. Old vacuum. Go to
Like an actual wall that you eat.
15. And it's just holding. If the diaphragm was leaking, she'd leak out. So that's that. It's just two flanges with O-rings. And it's Allen bolts on this side and 10 mil head bolts on that side. I say 10 mil head because it's a 6mm bolt.
Like that camera, buddy. You're recording.
I am, but
Picture me, buddy. Very nice.
I just heard about our battery guy that decides to help us with tires sometimes.
Everything, my friend.
Everything. Well, for you, my friend, I have this.
You're the man. I love this belt, dude. It's the fucking shit.
Is it? You have the same exact one before?
Yes. And I lost it when I...
I'll edit that one out.
Edit that. Yeah.
Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Regulator out. There's a 10mm bolt right there.
How did the drain fluid look on this Mazda, or did you look at it?
I haven't looked at it yet.
I'm going to order a set of plugs for it. We told them,
And these tires too.
yeah. We need to pull a plug. There's due at 75. Believe it or not.
Wow.
So they're due at 75, and we.
Check for a tune. Needs one. Back to what I was doing. So yeah, tune on this one, service on that one. I'm gonna swap them and do a fuel injection flush and tune up on that one and service that one. Finish this guy up. We moving today. 2 more bolts and she's out. One bolt. That's the brace. And 2 bolts. Kobe. Now everyone's, I hear that's so sad. Nah, man, not sad. Keep the tradition alive. Let's do this. So how am I gonna get this guy out? That's loose. That was loose. AST, Matco branded though, but Außenmacher. That'll work. Those clamp pliers, I really like these. They got grooves this way and groove that way. Little vacuum hose, and it comes all out and full access. Just so I can do this. This is ridiculous. Boom. Ah. They're smart though. It locks in on both sides. They knew it would break eventually. And there we are. Looks similar? Just kidding, it's identical. So, synthetic silicone base grease. A little thin coat. Bye, Herbert. Hold this while I put these guys back in. Yeah, get your hand in there. Slides right on in. So it's gonna be black wrenches. So we're in inch pounds, 74 to 96. And then to the rail, 74 to 96, same thing. So 74 to 96, what's in the middle of that? 85. So we go 85 inch pounds. Doesn't give me a spec for that, so just snug. 85 inch pounds. No, let's keep it 3/8. Because I got 3/8 sockets. I'll go 89. A lot of Toyota stuff calls for 89 foot-pounds or inch pounds. Snug, snug. Go back. Snug. Snug. And torqued. I'm gonna try to help it a little bit. Still doesn't want to start. She's flooded. Give it a little throttle. She's running rough. Smoothing out. And we're idling. We're idling. Shut it off. We know the fuel rail is pressurized. Yeah. So obviously nothing coming out. Stretch right up. This one will puke the fuel out for a second and then get dry and be okay. And this one was the one that was constantly spitting, and we're not spitting anymore. Hopefully you can see both of them in the same shot. I don't think so. I don't have good luck with GoPro lately. But we're good. None of them are spitting anymore. Shut her down. Let it sit. not puking. And put the hoses back on because it would capture the fuel. So one, we're gonna test them by capturing the fuel, as well as when it captures the fuel, it's capturing it in the intake manifold, and that's what gives it the hard to start. With this vacuum T, fuel's going in here. So now we'll let it sit, and then in a little while we'll start it up, make sure it starts up just perfectly fine, and I'll pull the hose off, see if there's fuel in there. But yeah, we're gonna be fixed. Starts right up. All right, that's pretty. Here's a tech tip. I have the engine cover and the engine covers. When you lift it off, people put it on the floor. One, it gets dirty. I hate the floor, but people forget it. So if you put it on the windshield, just make sure there's no metal or anything like that to scratch it. Glass doesn't scratch very easily, but just in case, no studs or anything like that. Put it on the windshield, and you do one of two things: keep it off the floor, and then put it in your face when you get back in the car. If it's in your face, it's gonna be hard to forget. It's sad enough time to where the regulator will leak enough and it would be hard to start. So now, the only other thing, it just felt and sounded like fuel. It's hard to start and blah, 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 blah. Just running rough once it finally did start. That just felt like a fuel issue. So yeah, got the fuel pressure and you could just see it dropping. And if you got to drop, you got to find out which side. It was injector side. My problem came where I wanted to pull the injectors out because I'd see a leak on this side. Two things. One, I would have eventually found it. I would like to believe, and not I would like to believe, you gotta disconnect that vacuum hose, and when you pull the injectors out and I pressurize the system to see which injector's leaking, what I would see, and even before maybe, I gotta pull the line off either right there, or when I have it up in the air, suspended or floating or whatever, pressurize the fuel system, and then I would see the regulator leaking. So I mean, I would have found it eventually, but, and not replacing any parts, that's the name of the game. Don't replace any parts until we know 100%. But I would have pulled the manifold off unnecessarily. So that's where my boss was the MVP on this one. And I told him I need the okay to pull the manifold, and he said, and I said, I have an injector side leak. He said, did you check the regulator? And that's old school experience base versus trying to get in here and scope everything and pressurize stuff. He's seen a lot of regulators leak, so he said, did you check it? And I said, not yet. And we're dry. So that's gonna be a fix. So yeah, lessons all around here. Don't shut anyone out. Listen to their opinions, their thoughts. They're valid most of the time. And yeah, on that conclusion, just listen to people, listen to ideas, because teamwork makes the dream work.